You were born in the year 1290 in a village of 40 houses in the English Midlands. The midwife wipes you clean with a rough linen rag and does not smile, because one child in four born in this village will not live to see a first birthday, and she has buried too many to celebrate too early. Your mother whispers a prayer to St. Margaret, the protector of women in childbirth. Your father waits outside in the mud because a birthing room's no place for a man. You do not know it yet, but you have arrived at the bottom of a world with exactly two kinds of people. The ones who own the land and the ones who work it. You are the second kind. You will be the second kind until the day you die. This is your entire life. Your first home is a single room, 30 feet long, with walls of woven branches packed with mud and animal hair. Under a roof of thatched straw, there is no chimney. Smoke from the open hearth rises through a hole cut in the roof, and everything you own smells of it. Your clothes, your hair, your skin. In winter, the family cow and a few sheep sleep at one end of the room, because their bodies give off heat, and heat is worth more than clean air. You sleep at the other end, on a sack of straw pressed between your brothers and sisters, under a single woolen blanket. You learn to walk on a floor of packed earth. You learn to eat what there is, which is bread, coarse and dark, made of rye and barley, and pottage, a thick soup of peas, cabbage, and onions that sits over the fire for days. Meat appears a few times a year, on feast days, in pieces small enough to swallow whole. You drink weak ale from the age of 5. Because the stream that gives the village its water also receives everything the village throws away. You own one tunic of undyed wool, cut large so you can grow into it, and you go barefoot from Easter until the first frost. You cannot read, and you never will. You do not know what year it is, and neither do most of the adults around you. Time is not a number here. Time is plowing, then sowing, then haymaking, then harvest, then the pig killed at Martinmas, then the long dark, then plowing again. The only building of stone within a day's walk is the church, and inside it the walls are painted with saints and devils in red and gold, and it is the most beautiful thing you will ever see in your life. In the winter you are 6 years old. Your sister Agnes catches a fever 2 days after Christmas. She is 3. Your mother sits with her for 4 nights, pressing wet cloth to her forehead, whispering to St. Margaret again. On the 5th morning the house is quiet. Your father spends half a day breaking the frozen churchyard soil with an iron bar to dig a grave 3 feet long. Your mother returns to milking on the 3rd day afterward because cows do not grieve and rent does not wait. Nobody in the village finds any of this unusual. Half of all children born in England die before their 14th year, and every family you know has dug a small grave. You are one of the ones who lives, therefore you will work. Work begins at 7. Your first job is standing in a cold field at dawn, throwing stones at crows so they do not eat the newly planted seed. You gather firewood. You herd geese. You pick stones out of the plow soil until your fingers split. By 12, you are counted as grown, and you take your place beside your father behind the oxen, and now you learn what you actually are. You are a villain. It is a legal word, and it means you are not free. You cannot leave this manor without the Lord's permission. You cannot marry without paying him. When your father dies, the Lord will take the family's best animal as a death tax before you inherit anything at all. You have never seen the Lord up close. He exists as a manor house beyond the trees, a steward with a ledger and a list of what you owe. And what you owe is this. Your family holds 15 acres from the Lord, scattered in long strips across the great open fields. In return, 3 days of every week you work his land before you are allowed to touch your own. His harvest comes in before your harvest. His hay is cut before your hay. At harvest he can demand extra days on top, and the reeve walks the field counting who came. On top of that, the church takes its tithe, 1 sheaf in every 10 you cut, carted to the parish barn while your children watch it go. You must grind your grain at the Lord's mill, and the miller keeps a portion as his fee. And everyone in the village is certain he keeps more than he should, though no one has ever been able to prove it. The mathematics of your life are brutally simple. For every grain of wheat you plant, the soil gives back about 4. One of those 4 must be saved as seed for next year. What remains after the Lord, after the church, after the mill, feeds your family. Bread is 8 of every 10 mouthfuls you will ever eat. A hired laborer in the village earns 2 pence a day when there is work, and a single chicken costs 1. A plow ox costs 10 shillings, which is 120 pence, more coin than you will ever hold in your hand at one time. So no family plows alone. 8 oxen pull a plow team, pooled between neighbors, and a man who quarrels with his neighbors does not eat. Your year runs in a circle that never breaks. Autumn plowing and the winter wheat going in. Winter in the barn, swinging a flail at the threshing floor until your shoulders burn. 6 sheaves to make a bushel of grain. Spring oats and barley, lambing in the cold, then weeding, then shearing. Hay in June, cut, turned, dried, stacked, all of it racing the sky. Wheat in August, when you do not really sleep, because everything your family will eat for a year stands drying in the field, and 1 week of bad weather can take it. Even in a good year, there is a hungry season. It comes every summer in the weeks before harvest, when last year's grain runs low and this year still stands green in the field. The bread gets darker, the pottage gets thinner. Your mother serves the men first because the men swing the scythes, and everyone quietly counts the days to August. You grow up believing this is simply the shape of a year, the way winter is cold. That is the part no one says out loud. Everything in this life balances on a foot of topsoil and one good summer. You have never seen what happens when the summers stop. You will. But first you marry. It is 1312, you are 22, and her name is Matilda. She is 19 from the next parish, and you have known her face from market days since you were both children. The match is arranged the way everything here is arranged, between fathers over ale with the land doing most of the talking. She brings a dowry of 2 ewes, a brass cooking pot, and a chest of bedding her mother wove. Before the wedding, your father counts out the merchant. The fine paid to the Lord for permission for the marriage to happen at all, 3 shillings, months of careful saving, because a villain's children are the Lord's future labor, and he charges for them accordingly. The wedding waits until after harvest, when there is food to spare and time to spend. The ceremony takes place at the church door in front of witnesses in your one good tunic. Afterward there is ale and someone plays a pipe, and for one evening the village is loud and warm. Matilda moves into a cottage the 2 of you raise with your own hands in 3 weeks. Timber frame, mud walls, straw roof. She brews the ale, keeps the garden, tends the hens, spins wool by firelight until her fingers crack, and works the harvest beside you because a peasant household needs every pair of hands it contains. You bathe a few times a year, both of you. Everyone you have ever met has lice, and no one thinks of it as dirt. It is simply what skin is like. The following autumn, she goes into labor with your first child. You wait outside through the night as your father once did, listening through a wall of mud and branches. The village women are inside with her, and around her waist they have tied a birthing girdle blessed by the priest, because prayer and charms are the only medicine on offer. 1 birth in 50 kills the mother. Matilda will face those odds 6 times. The baby comes at dawn, a boy, and he is carried to the church and baptized within 3 days, because an unbaptized soul is the one thing this village fears more than hunger. And no one assumes a newborn has time to spare. 6 children are born in that cottage. A boy, then a girl, then a boy who lives 9 days, then a girl, then a boy, then a girl born small in a cold March. 3 of the 6 live past their 5th year. When the second son dies, you give his name to the next boy born, because that is what families do here. The name is what continues. You do not speak about the ones in the churchyard. But every Sunday walking to Mass, Matilda's eyes go to the same corner of the yard, and you pretend not to notice, and she pretends not to be noticed. By 1314, you have a working farm, a wife, 3 living children, and your father's strips of land. Because the Lord took the family cow when your father was buried that spring. By the standards of this village, it is enough. Then, in the spring of 1315, it starts to rain. Rain in May is normal. This rain is not. It falls through May, through June, through July, day after day, week after week, until the strips of plowland turn to standing water, and the wheat rots where it grew. Hay lies flat and black in the meadows. The hungry season comes early and does not leave. When you cut what survived in August, the grain comes in soft and green with mold. And the harvest that should have returned 4 grains for everyone planted barely returns the seed itself. You have lived through bad years. Everyone has. You tighten, you thin the pottage, you wait for spring. But the price tells you what kind of year this is. A quarter of wheat that sold for 5 shillings before the rain is selling for 20 by Christmas. And still climbing. And the Lord's granary now has a man sleeping in front of the door. Then, in the spring of 1316, the rain comes back. A second harvest fails, and this is the arithmetic no peasant survives on paper. You now face the choice your grandfather warned you about beside the fire, the one no one believed they would ever face. Eat the seed corn and have nothing to plant, or plant it and watch your children starve in front of it. You split the difference, like everyone. You plant thin. You eat bread stretched with ground beans, then with acorn flour, then with bark. Matilda boils nettles. Your son sets snares for songbirds, and no one calls it a child's game. Your children stop playing because playing costs strength, and you can count your youngest daughter's ribs through her shift when you carry her to bed. The priest says the rain is God's punishment, and the whole village walks barefoot around the parish bounds behind the cross, begging the sky to close. The sky does not close. Strangers begin appearing on the road, whole families walking from villages that have nothing left, and your village turns them away at the ditch, quietly, without meeting their eyes. Because charity has a price now, and everyone knows exactly what it is. At the manor court, men you have known your whole life are fined for stealing grain by night. Some of them stole from you. In December of 1316, you slaughter the ox. It is the single most valuable thing you own. Half of a plow team, the engine of every future harvest. And you kill it in the yard on a gray morning, because the future has become a luxury, and the meat will get 4 people through the winter. Your son cries, you do not. You have discovered that hunger burns off everything in a man except the arithmetic. The village priest reads the burial rite so often that winter that he stops changing his vestments between funerals. Old men go first, then infants, then the fevers come for the weekend, and the fevers are not particular. Your father-in-law, the miller, your youngest daughter, in the last week of Lent, 1317, quietly, in her sleep, weighing less than she did a year before. Across England, by the time the weather breaks, 1 person in 10 is dead of hunger, and the sickness that follows it. 500,000 people across Northern Europe, millions more. You are not counted in any of those numbers. You are one of the ones who stood in the churchyard, again, while someone else was lowered in. The harvest of 1317 comes in almost normal. The one after that is good. The famine ends the way weather ends, without apology and without meaning. But it leaves something in you that never leaves. For the rest of your life, you cannot watch rain in May without your chest going tight, and you will never again let the grain store fall below half, no matter how good the year. The years after the famine pass the way peasant years pass, in furrows. You buy a new ox, then a second. Your surviving son marries. Your daughter marries into the next parish, and now it is you counting out the merchant at the manor court. Your back curves from 30 years behind the plow. By 40, your knuckles are swollen and stiff every morning, and most of your teeth are gone, worn down by decades of bread ground with grit from the millstones. You were born into odds, and you have beaten most of them. But a peasant who survives childhood and reaches 20 can expect, on average, to see about 45. And in the summer of 1335, at 45 years old, you meet the killer that takes more people in this world than war, wolves, and hunger combined. Not a sword, an infection. Dysentery, the bloody flux, carried in the same water this village has always drunk. The reason you were raised on ale. It takes strong men in a week. It takes you in 9 days, on the straw bed in the cottage you built, with Matilda's hand on your forehead the way her hands once rested on 6 small fevers. You are buried in the churchyard near Agnes, near your children, in a grave your son digs. There is no headstone. Peasants do not get headstones. There is a wooden marker, and within 10 years the weather takes it. And within 40, no living person remembers exactly where you lie. 1 trace of you survives. A single line in the manor court roll, written by the steward's clerk in the year 1319, recording that you were fined 2 pence for coming late to the Lord's harvest. That line still exists. 700 years from now, a historian in a quiet archive will read your name aloud once, and for 1 moment you will be the most real person in the room. You never learned to read. You never traveled more than 15 miles from the room where you were born, and you never knew how lucky your timing was. Because 13 years after your death, ships will reach the English coast carrying something far worse than rain. But that is another life. In your next life, you are born as